Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Wareham School Committee. Today is Thursday, November 19th. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight's meeting is a little different. It's a hybrid meeting. So what that means is there are 3 members here in person, and there are 2 of our members who are here on Zoom. So we are all present. I appreciate all the technology that has gone into making this possible. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV as always. And I've just been asked to remind the members who are here to speak up loudly so that Jamie is able to hear us. I know it's difficult through the masks. Because it's a hybrid meeting, all of our votes tonight will be by roll call. And I guess we'll get going. The first item on the agenda is public participation. Is there anyone here who would like to address the committee? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to good news. Go ahead.
The Wareham High School recently announced the recipients of the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship, the Wareham High School 2020 AP qualifying scores, and the AP Scholar distinctions. Due to COVID-19, we're unable to invite a large body of students to the meeting, so we prepared a video to recognize the scholarship achievements of our students.
wow, congratulations to all of those students, especially our own Emily Roberge. And thank you for putting together that slideshow. Of course, we would much rather have had the students in person, but that was the next best thing. So thank you very much for doing that. Does anyone have any other good news that they would like to share? Mrs. Chandler, could you come join us? She has some good news she's going to share.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? This morning, I had a wonderful text from Mrs. Skolnick, one of our fabulous teachers at Deaconess, who happens to volunteer free her time to distribute boxes of food. Today, there were extra donations available, and we gave out so many donations, so many boxes. This is from farmers to families. So they were left from the last distribution and given to Wareham Public School students and their families today. So we're very grateful to the Farmer to Family group and Ms. Skolnick for coming up with this wonderful idea.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
sharing. I know I put you on the spot for that.
No, that's quite all right. Very happy to share.
Okay, we'll move on to the report of the student representative. Emily?
All right, can you hear me? All right, cool. So I have a lot of cool news today. So the high school, we recently had our NEASC accreditation, which is really important. But due to COVID, one of the traditional ways of them evaluating us, which is the student-led tour, it had to be done a different way, but we did figure it out and it turned out really well. So myself and Indiana Troop on Thursday, we filmed a tour and they watched it and we got some feedback. Mrs. Kavicki emailed me and said that we received positive feedback from the video. So that's really good. We put some jokes in there and made it really fun. And the following Monday, or this Monday, we had 2 people representing NEASC on Zoom, and there were students that were able to be kind of interviewed or asked questions by them just to get a better idea of the school, and that also went really well. I did that. The Zoom call that I went to went super well. I was lucky to be with some other very well-spoken students. I was with Cecilia Bottino, Colby Flanagan, and Ever Gordon, and we all gave them a lot of information. So we all certainly look forward to any opportunity to talk about Wareham in a positive light. So that went really well. I also wanted to talk about community youth empowerment. I had the opportunity to attend one of their Zoom workshops last night. This was open to all students, and it's held every other Wednesday from 7 to 8, just about. For last night's workshop, we covered super important topics such as racial inequality, our current pandemic, sports, and positivity. The meeting was super engaging and well thought out, so everyone was pretty comfortable to share their thoughts. I speak for all the kids that have participated in any CYE event to say that we are incredibly lucky to have such a motivating organization here available for our youth. I also wanted to give a big thank you to the teachers at Wareham High School for being available and supportive as term 1 closes, because it's a hard time for everyone. The student body is super lucky to have such a great staff who are all clearly willing to put in extra effort to ensure that their students are doing the best they can. So all of these things that I mentioned tonight, they just further added to my great pride of being a student at Wareham and just an overall resident of Wareham. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for that great report. Tell us something that you learned from the NEASC meetings that you didn't know before.
I'd say just all of the work that goes into the school that's behind the scenes. I knew it was there, but I definitely got a better idea. And just how invested people are, the questions that they were asked, questions that I wasn't even expecting prior to from what I read. They asked, how are the teachers able to ask us if we understand the material, whether or not. So that was an interesting question. I enjoyed answering that one. So yeah, a lot went into it. It was great.
It's great to hear that students are so involved in that process. All right, I just want to take a minute and just ask Mary and April, I should have asked you this earlier, I just want to make sure that you can see and hear okay.
I can hear some people some of the time. It goes in and out of how loud or how soft I can hear people.
Okay. Is it here or is it your connection?
It's there. Sometimes when someone's talking, I can hear them pretty clearly, but then if they turn slightly from the mic, if they're not speaking direct, it's a little hard to hear through the Zoom.
Okay. We'll try to speak more into the mic.
Thank you.
Mary, are you okay?
I can hear and I can see. The strange thing right now is that Emily is still talking from what I see. So it must be delayed.
Okay.
I have a delay also.
She said there's a delay.
I think it's a delay from CTV's stream to what we're talking on the Zoom. The Zoom seems like it's ahead, and the WCTV stream seems like it's much farther behind, because on my live stream, Emily's still talking also.
Okay, but you can hear us in real time, so that's, okay. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was 5 weeks ago on October 15th.
I move to approve.
All right, second?
Okay. We'll have a vote, but it will be a roll call vote, so Mr. Bajali?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes.
Ms. Rossi?
Yes.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 500. Next on the agenda is an esports presentation by Mr. Palladino and Mr. Brown.
I hope Mr. Brown's not on tape delay. I know he's in the waiting room. I can get started. I think, is there a Carlisle Beach or Candace Beach in the waiting room?
Yeah, no, they've got Mr. Brown there.
Sean able to come in? Oh, he's in. Oh, good. Mr. Brown, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
All right, Mr. Brown was involved in an AP after-school session, so he's burning the midnight candle right now. I think he had a 5-minute reprieve. Sean, thanks for joining us. Carlisle and Candace going to be able to join us?
I think they are.
Oh, there they are in the waiting room. Perfect timing. So Carlisle and Candace are two of our members of the e-sport, and I'm hoping that they will run the discussion. I know you all have the slide presentation, and we will try and be brief because we know you have a large agenda tonight.
Thank you.
I see Candace. She's got to turn her microphone on. And Carlisle's entering. So Carlisle and Candace, the folks on the school committee have our PowerPoint, and it's superimposed here on the wall. And I'm hoping you can give them a 3-minute synopsis of the club, where it meets, when it meets, and talk about the competition and the importance of this club being recognized as a official club for our for tournament purposes and for competing in various leagues. So I'm hoping you guys can tackle that for us tonight. And don't forget to turn your mics on. So Candace, do you want to talk about the club and where it meets and when it meets traditionally, obviously pre-COVID, if you could talk about that?
Sure. We usually meet in the Sharples room right after school. We head right after class and go to the Sharples room and log in on the computers.
Awesome. And it happens to be right in front of my office, so it's probably the club that I get to see most often in action. And traditionally, there's about a dozen students in there. Mr. Brown was the advisor last year. It was kind of a pilot year last year where we got things off the ground. We've got a great room with great computers and technology in there. Carlisle, can you talk about some of the games we play? I know many of the school committee members are familiar with Fortnite, but maybe you can tell them about some of the other games we play besides Fortnite.
Well, maybe we play a game called League of Legends, but we play Rocket League, League of Legends. We don't really play Fortnite, but Rocket League and League of Legends, and a little bit of Smite as well.
And the Rocket League is actually played in a soccer field. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's like cars racing and trying to get, it's like soccer with cars, basically.
It's pretty cool. It's really cool. And Mr. Brown, I know we've been getting ready to compete, and we've had some matches. Can you talk about the importance of being recognized by the school district as an official club in regards to some of the competitions we could be involved in? And from what I'm seeing, it seems like we're going to be able to do this even under the COVID situation.
Right, so, I mean, essentially we worked through a group called Play Versus, and they set up matches, and actually they've expanded it ever since COVID hit. But basically we were playing against another school in Mass every Tuesday. We did 3 or 4, we did 2 preseason games, and I think 2 season games before the March 13th shutdown. But they now have a skirmish feature, so we can play other teams whenever we want. And they also have a level now, so they have like a competitive and an intramural, so we can have matches that are matched more to our level, depending on which team we field. And so it's a good experience for the kids. They get a little competition. League of Legends has a significant amount of teamwork in it, and so does Rocket League. So it's good for them to, they work together, they talk about strategies and builds and things like that.
Thank you. And this has actually expanded into college, post-high school. Candace and Carlisle, have either of you thought about doing this post-high school?
Yes, I actually have. A few schools have scholarships for getting diamond and higher in League of Legends. And one of my friends was he's Challenger, and he's been accepted into Gilbert College, but he got a full scholarship because of League of Legends, which is really cool.
Wow, that's amazing. So that kind of concludes our presentation. We know you have the PowerPoint presentation, but I've got 2 team members here that are eager to answer any questions you may have.
Can I ask, how many students are involved in the club, generally?
Mr. Brown, I'm not sure if you heard that. The question was how many students are involved. I know there seems to be always a good number in there, but I have not counted.
Yeah, so we had usually between so on our team itself we had 6 people, but we had probably, like Ms. Boutin said, we had 12 to 14, but some weren't showing consistently enough to be on, because we just ran the League of Legends team, so we had 3 kids who were interested in Rocket League, and a couple kids who were trying out League of Legends and not so sure. So I would say dedicated we had 6, and on average we had 10 to 12 in the room, but they were playing a variety of games.
And in my experience, part of the pilot club, it takes a couple years to really build the club to really substantial numbers. But that was, from what I saw, the numbers were really solid when they were practicing, and obviously they have a good number of serious students that are involved in it.
So, do we have this in our packet? I don't think I saw it.
I don't believe we do.
Oh, then we'll go through it. I'm sorry. We were trying to expedite things. Okay, I'll spend a little more time. So they talked about the games they play: Smite, Rocket League, Overwatch, and some Fortnite. And this just kind of describes the 3 different games that they play and what it's all about. Mr. Brown mentioned the playversus.com is the website that they utilize. And yeah, if we can go back, I'm sorry. So this Play VS is nationally recognized league, and 13,000 plus schools, and it's expanding every single day, are involved in that. The National Federation of State High School Association is an official partner, as is the MSAA locally, Massachusetts School Administrators Association. The MIAA is getting on board. We're starting to recognize this as well. So it is, esports is going to be recognized by the MIAA. So that's the Play VS. And we mentioned Room 115, and pre-COVID, 25 gaming computers, which is outstanding. And Sean has been the head coach. We've received some assistance from Christian Fernandez. And you really need a lot of assistance because, you know, just getting this started, and there's a level that's needed there. And they meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which are our after-school days. And they're usually there well past 4 p.m. And like I said, what's exciting is with the COVID, you know, while we've had to cancel other programs and activities, this can be done safely with the COVID rules. And I think we mentioned the games. So that's kind of the slideshow. I apologize, I thought you had that.
That's okay. So when you say that they can do it safely even during COVID, so they're in school now till those times?
No, Mr. Brown, can you speak to the safety measures and when they would be able to do this?
Yeah, so before COVID, they had a rule that you had to be at your school in the same room, and once COVID hit, they relaxed that, and the kids can play and compete from home.
Thank you.
Okay, so are you looking for us to approve this as a club?
As a pilot club for
Okay.
this year.
And so what will that do for the team that you don't have now? What will that?
Well, for one thing, it will compensate Mr. Brown for his time. It will allow us to be recognized as an official club of Wareham High School and make sure that we can compete in tournaments throughout the year.
So will it allow you to join some of these groups that you're not a part of now?
And there are some we already are a part of that we don't need that official affiliation, but I think it just strengthens the program and strengthens the club.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's great, anything that the kids can participate in now.
Thank you.
Mary or April, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do think it's really cool as a mom of a gamer, not necessarily that he plays these particular ones, but that, you know, it's something to kind of incorporate those kids that aren't necessarily athletic, but are competitive and do like to, you know, kind of challenge themselves and kind of put themselves in scenarios. There's a lot of like problem solving and teamwork involved in a lot of these games that I think a lot of parents tend to overlook because they're not really, you just see the system and see the time that they're dedicating, but not necessarily see them working with somebody else to accomplish a goal, or in some of the games building things or coming together. So I think it's great that we're offering this, and that, you know, even if it's a small group now, just knowing that once they're hopefully able to be back in person, that they'll be able to continue, you know, to kind of broaden their horizons that way. And it seems to definitely be a club of the future for sure. So thank you for putting this together for them.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Just sort of, I guess, a point of order. It mentions, you know, esports presentation and nothing about vote or anything.
Right.
So I don't know if we can vote tonight, but I still have plenty of questions, well, some questions. So, and I should know this, but I don't, so does this club or a potential club or all the clubs, do they fall under the academic requirements policy, meaning you have to keep a certain?
Yes, they do. It's any extracurricular activity follows the athletic eligibility requirements.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if this.
It's in the handbook.
I wasn't sure if this was considered extracurricular or just a club, but it does follow.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't want kids playing Fortnite and, you know, not keeping up with their school.
Sure. No, the students in this club balance things quite nicely.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, in the interest of time, I certainly would like to vote now. I understand what you're saying, it's true. So unless you're opposed to that.
No, I don't know what happened with this one. I mean, we got no PowerPoint and it doesn't even say vote.
That might have been my fault in the PowerPoint.
All right,
Well, but, I mean, they did a great job.
No, yeah. And,
And honestly, I wouldn't have known what some of these games were anyway, even if we had the PowerPoint, so.
the Rocket League is great. It's funny because, my son plays it, and the college kids play it. We host game, and then they come, they all know how to play it. Everyone plays it, and Fortnite as well.
Okay, so then if you don't object, we will go ahead and.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So I would ask for a motion to approve this as a club at the high school.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Mary?
You just say me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
April?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Evan?
Yes.
And myself, yes, so 500.
Thank you, and thank you, Candace, Carlisle, and Mr. Brown. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to the report from the Office of Student Services and Melissa Kay.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to just start. Is the PowerPoint up? I can't see that.
It is.
Perfect. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. We can move on to the first page, Dr. Schwam, please. Thank you. These are numbers that I had shared with you previously at the budget hearings, but I wanted to just put this up as kind of like a snapshot of where we're at right now as far as special education numbers across the district. So just as a reminder, we have 484 students currently on active IEPs. That's about 23.7% of our total enrollment here in Wareham. Our out-of-district students right now are currently at 44, which is about 1.02%. And then our total students with IEPs across the district is 528, which is about 25.9%. And we're still over the state average of 18.4. Next slide, please. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update as to how it's been going with hybrid and remote learning. Currently, all of our sub-separate high-needs special education programs are up and running. So they're doing the 4 days a week, half days in person. An average of about 60% of the program students, the students in these sub-separate programs, the high-need programs, are attending in person. And about 40% have chosen remote learning. And then all of the special education services, so all of our counseling, our ABA, our speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, are all being made available either in person if the students are coming into the school buildings for the hybrid model, or if they're here 4 days a week in the high needs. Or they're being made available remotely to all students, so everybody's getting their services offered to them for their IEPs. Next slide, please. All of our contract services, some of our services we have to contract out for because we don't have enough students in the district to support a full-time position. So some of those services would be orientation and mobility, teacher of the visually impaired, and home ABA services, so services that go into the homes to provide those services to our students with autism. And those are all being offered to families remotely at this time, and we're doing that in an effort to maintain safety for all of our students, our staff, and our families by trying to limit the amount of outside providers we're letting come in and out of our buildings, and to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. Next slide, please. We're currently holding all meetings district-wide remotely. So currently district-wide, we have been able to hold about 75% of the K-12 IEP meetings that were meant to be held from the time that we closed March 12th through the end of the last school year. So I'm hoping that we will be completely caught up before we break for the holidays. But we're doing pretty well. About 75% of those meetings that should have been held during the closure in the spring have been held now. We've also completed about 80%, it's actually a little bit higher now since I made this slide. About 80% of the special education evaluations that were scheduled to occur, that we had consent to do between March and June, about 80% of those have been completed. And teams did work over the summer as well, providing meeting times for parents and guardians, and also opening up evaluations to families. And we did evaluations at the multi-service center over the summer with plexiglass dividers and all PPE and cleaning procedures in place, and that worked out really well. We were able to get a lot of that testing done over the summer so that we could get kids' services in place for the start of the school year. Next slide, please. Just looking ahead and really kind of being unsure of where the pandemic is taking us, we are keeping our alternative testing site at Multi-Service Center open and available for families who have chosen full remote learning and aren't comfortable bringing their students into school buildings and exposing them to many people. We're keeping our alternative test site open at the Multi-Service Center indefinitely at this point so that families have a more secluded place where they're able to bring their children and have the testing done for eligibility or re-eligibility for special education. Again, all of our IEP meetings are currently being held via Zoom or via Google Meets. We also offer conference calls for parents who might not have access to either one of those two platforms. And we also have tutorial videos up for our parents on how to utilize all of these platforms as well. It's been going pretty well. It does limit the number of visitors into the buildings again, as we seek to keep our students, family, and staff safe throughout this pandemic. Our student service office, all of our service providers, our contract service providers, our teachers, our paraprofessionals, we remain very dedicated to servicing our students and supporting our families through this time. It's a difficult time, and we are working diligently to make sure that we take into consideration the needs of our students and try to really individualize plans that support them as best as we can throughout this pandemic. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Are there some students on IEPs who are not in substantially separate programs that are allowed to come to school more than 2 days a week? Or have we reached out to any groups of students?
So currently, the guidance from DESE is to try to get as many of our students that are high needs, and the definition of high needs given to us was the students who spend 75% or more of their instructional time outside of a general ed setting. So that really defines our sub-separate programs. Our inclusion students, our students who may be experiencing homelessness, our students who are in the care of DCF, they're also considered high need students, but our district, currently we are only able to service those students 2 days a week in hybrid. And it really, for us, is a space issue for making sure that we're social distancing, making sure that we're able to keep everybody safe and maintain the space between students and the cleaning procedures that need to be done, as well as avoiding cross-contamination of the cohorts. So we have to be kind of very vigilant on that. We would love to have more students back, but the constraints we have are just the constraints that we have. So right now it is just the high need students, which is our sub-separate by definition, that are in the buildings 4.5 days a week.
Anyone else? Oh, Mary.
Sorry, need to unmute.
Okay.
That's going to be the word of the year, unmute. Do our special ed students have remote learning plans in place, individual remote learning plans?
So we have a remote learning plan that is for our sub-separate and then our inclusion students. And then we tailor those plans on an as-needed basis for students who might need something different. So we've spent several hundred hours at every school in the district creating individual plans for students who require that level of support. But the hybrid and remote learning plans that we created over the summer as a special education team with the related service providers as well as parents that were part of that group are pretty comprehensive and are working for, I would say, 75% of students are able to be successful or as successful as can be expected during the pandemic and the hybrid and remote learning models. And 25% of those plans we have had to make individual and had to really tailor those plans to meet the individual needs of the students who just aren't being successful with the plan the way that we laid out over the summer.
Okay, thanks. And also, I know you talked about the contracted services and that, so they're just doing it all remote, is that correctly? Correct? Okay.
At the services that come into our buildings, so vision, orientation, or ability teacher of the DAP,
Yeah.
those are not, we're not allowing those into buildings right now, so they're providing those services remotely. The ABA services through PACES, Preliminary Collaborative Educational Services, that service a few of our students, not many, in the homes of about 2 or 3 students. They are offering in-person to families.
Right.
If families are comfortable with that.
Right.
Unfortunately, I think it's 2 students right now that have that service in the entire district. Neither one of them have chosen the in-person due to health situations in their homes with elderly parents they might care for or other children that are compromised. So even though it is being offered by the company that provides the service for us, the parents are not willing to have that come into the home at this time.
And so how many hours do you estimate that your TBI gets per week? Because as I recall in the past, and I'm sure it's changed, but he had a good amount of hours in the district.
Yeah, so we used to employ our own, and then he left us. When right around the time that he left us to take another position, we lost 2 of our very heavy hitter vision students, and that really decreased the amount of hours that we had. Currently, we have 9 students who receive TBI and orientation mobility services, or a combination, either or a combination of the 2. And I have to get you the exact numbers. I know that there are 9 students, so I'm going to say it's probably for TBI about 9 hours a week max that we're doing. It still is not at the level where I can support a full-time TBI. I would love to find somebody who was a TBI and orientation mobility specialist, but that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare.
That I think we could support and maybe like farm out, but I don't think we, right now, currently with the numbers we have, we just don't have the need for a full-time person.
Right. So those students that you have in the district, I would hope our cohort, we have it cohort A, would there be coming every week? Are they every day, every week?
Nope, so the students that we have, that out of the 9 students, we have 7 are at DECUS. So 7 are very young and have come to us within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And so I think last year we had the largest influx of vision. We had 3 last year. So they're coming in very tiny. And so we're just kind of getting to know them, getting to know their needs, starting to do the vision assessments through Perkins or Carroll, School for the Blind and Center for the Blind. So we're still kind of deciding what services we need and kind of evaluating them because they're still small. And then once we kind of get to know them, I think we're going to need to look at, if we may need to look at addition of other services. But for right now, they're not students that are in need of that level of high need of need. They're pretty much included students, so they're in inclusive settings, and they're not sub-separate, and their vision needs are not significant enough that I would consider them a high need student.
Well, that's good. We have several that they're inclusive, but they are struggling with the remote because of their vision.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I don't really have a question that you can answer, but I'm just listening to you talk about the families who are remote and who it's difficult to get services in. I'm just picturing families being isolated by this, and is that something that you're seeing? Is that having an effect on families?
Yeah, so I think it's very difficult for all families, but I think it's even more difficult for families who have students with very severe needs. And students who are at the level where they need services in the home, are nonverbal, students who require communication devices and really need that contact. And for parents and guardians who have health issues and aren't able to send their students to school because of health issues or because of other compromising issues in their home, it's very difficult. Because as a guardian or a parent, you're faced with what's best for your child, but also what is going to keep your family safe, and it's just a very tough situation. So we try to work with our, those cases that are, probably about 10 across the district, and as much services as we can possibly provide in a remote setting, even to the point where we have, just people calling just to interact with the students' familiar faces, via Zoom or via Google Meet, just to kind of keep everybody feeling connected. Our social workers, our counselors, our student adjustment counselors are amazing. They are always keeping track and checking in, calling, Zooming. So I think that we're doing the best we can to try to keep everybody connected, but it really is just such a difficult time. And frustrating for families, frustrating for students, frustrating for us as educators.
All right, well, thank you for being here, unless anyone else has any questions. Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda, sorry, is the budget presentation.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Okay, let's see. Just move right along, Andrea. Of course, we need vision.
Yes.
You can move to the next slide. So the elements of the strategic plan: scholarship, leadership, citizenship, and stewardship. So the initial proposed budget a couple of weeks ago was $33,556,973. And if this current budget that we're in now, the approved budget town appropriation was $29,430,737, of which additional district revenue was applied of $1.1 million. The district operating budget for this year is $30,530,737.
So we have added some information for you, the Wareham High School, the staffing, the projected enrollment, as well as the current enrollment. And along the side, you will see we've listed exactly what the staffing makes up at each school. If you go to the next slide, the high school request for next year would be one science teacher, along with textbooks, chemistry, biology, and foreign language. Next slide takes you to the Wareham Middle School. Again, the same information, teachers, staff, students, and the projected enrollment. The middle school staff request would be one paraprofessional and one BCBA. At the Minot Forest, again, the same information, and the Minot Forest request, one teacher, one paraprofessional, additional staff to assist with evaluations, one custodian, two unified arts teachers, and one full-time BCBA. The John Deacon, the information, and there were no requests for additional staff. You have information about the PASS program. Currently, we have 31 students, and 8 of those students are school choice. And I would say that the staff would depend upon the enrollment. So if we saw a growth, then we certainly would be adding more teachers. Right now, our students are all on Edgenuity and doing online classes. The next slide just reiterates the special education. It breaks down the number of teachers that we have at each building, and it provides you the number of students. And then we go into the major accounts.
Yeah, can I have a question now, or should I wait?
No, you can ask a question.
All right, can we go back to the minus one?
Uh-huh.
Which one?
The request for the staff. Now, is it fair to say that the bulk or all of that is due to the new school?
No,
No?
some of it, but not. The teacher would be because of the class shift from grade 3 to grade 4. The custodian, go back to the next slide. The custodian would be because of the building. The paraprofessional, I believe that there was a retirement and this replaces the retirement. The unified arts teachers, they're being shared with the middle school, so this would help them stand alone. The additional staff to assist with evaluations, currently the middle school sends their department heads into Minot to assist with evaluations, and this would help pick up evaluations for the administrators.
And which position was the retirement?
Paraprofessional.
So would that just be a wash, though, if they're just going to be replaced?
They're not replaced this year, but so that's not in the budget, but yes, so no, it would not be a wash.
Okay. And if we could just go to the DECA slide for the staff. The staff request.
They have no staff.
Right. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Chandler, because I really like that about her, how she just likes to keep things, she's just happy with the way things are and doesn't want to see any loss, you know? So I appreciate that.
Okay, so then that takes us to the major accounts.
So the major accounts,
Sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear either Mike or Kevin when they're talking.
Okay, well, Kevin wasn't just talking, but Mike was, so we'll just ask him to speak more direct into the microphone.
When either one of them talk, I can't understand a word that's being said.
Okay.
Mary, can you hear us?
Barely, I can.
Okay. Thank you, that's it.
so this is presenting the budget in the major accounts that is in your policy. So administration, FY21 budget is $760,103. Proposed for FY22 is $1,019,852, difference of $259,740, which is a 34% increase. The increase is due to an increase to the legal line of $90,000. We're going to be in negotiations this year and next year. And also, there has been an increase in legal for special education. In FY20, the district spent close to $167,000, of which $125,000 was for special education. Another added expense into administration is $75,000 for moving expenses to the new elementary school. Another addition to administration is $50,000 into the district-wide information management contracted services. We had a network technician that resigned and was not replaced. So you'll see as we move through the sections that the money that was in place in the 4400s, which is operations and management, is moved into this $50,000 because it's now contracted out. Any questions? Instructional leadership, this current year, $2,822,939, increasing by $461,052 for an increase of 16.33%. In the instructional leadership, there's an additional $63,000 for curriculum supplementary program for, yeah, for the math and science, for the math and science programs. You want to go to the next one?
Sorry, Christine.
Sure.
Mike, do you have a question?
Yeah, just the administration again, what's the cause for that, such a sharp increase?
90,000 for legal,
Yeah,
75,000 anticipated moving costs to the new elementary school, and then $50,000 went into management and contracted services for a technician that resigned and was not replaced.
all right. And so the moving costs for the new school, that's not covered through MSBA?
They have 50,000 in the budget. When we moved from Minot to the middle and then some to Deacon's, we spent approximately 160,000, so we're a little shy. We know that we're not going to be moving as much as we did then, so with any hopes, we'll come in under budget.
Okay.
Then if you go to the next slide, this just lists what's in the major accounts, so you know, because sometimes we might not, we associate like administration with superintendent, principals, assistant superintendent, et cetera, but there's more that goes into the various accounts, so we just listed them for people's information.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
And so that sort of brings me to another question. Just an example, just because we had it tonight, the stipends, like a stipend for someone that's going to, supervise a club. What line item would that come out of?
That's the 73,000.
Yeah, there's a line item in the budget for
Yeah.
stipends.
It's just a flat out
Stipends.
generic stipends.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Next slide is just the same.
Mike, can you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
I was at. Can you hear me now? I was asking which particular item would stipends come from, and I just used the example of a teacher that was supervising a club, and it was the response was that there's one specific line item just for stipends generically for all of them.
Yes, it's called District Other Instructional Services and Other Expenditures, and it's 72,000. It's in the budget.
And they couldn't just say stipends.
No, it doesn't just say that. That'd be too easy.
Thank you.
So as we move along in the slides, it's, like Kim had said, it just lists what falls underneath each major account. You can move to the next one.
Okay, so
So these major accounts now is professional development is actually down by $1,891. Instructional materials is up by $81,247, which is just over 23%. That includes the textbooks that Kim spoke about, just general supplies, since they didn't get a lot of supply money this year. Then you have the guidance, counseling, and testing. The increase is $149,843, which is up just over 9%. There was some salaries that were reclassified. Pupil services is an increase of $138,058, which is an increase just over 4%. Operations and management had an increase of a proposed increase of $284,373, which is an increase of just over 11%. Any questions?
Nope.
And again, these lists what is categorized under these major accounts: professional development, technology, guidance, counseling, and testing, pupil services, and then operation and maintenance. You'll see that networking and telecommunications and technology maintenance is in there. Insurance is up $23,398 for an increase of 8.53%. In FY '20, we actually spent over $160,000 on medical insurance, and this also includes other insurance as well. Acquisitions, improvement, and replacement, it's 12,000, it's 12,000, there's no increase. And then programs with other schools, there's an increase of $469,000. If you move on to the next slide, major accounts and insurances, insurances for active employees, other non-employee insurance, and copier leases, so that is included in that total.
When you say $160,000 on medical insurance, what would that be?
That was for the food service.
Okay.
The food service. And then also in addition to that, you have your other non-employee insurance, which is bonding for anyone that has access to money or cash or checks. And then you have the rental of the lease of equipment, which is the copiers that we lease throughout the district.
Okay.
Acquisition of improvement and replace fixed assets. And the major programs with other school districts is tuition to mass schools, our tuition for school choice, our tuition to collaboratives, our tuition to private schools, non-public schools. It's all the tuitions outside of other school districts. So the initial budget request was $33,541,973. So if we look at the proposed reduction of all the additional staff that was requested, the value on that is $520,000. And then if we anticipate using these other sources of revenue, circuit breaker about $700,000, stabilization about $100,000, COVID funds of $200,000, and proposed cuts of supplies and materials, that's $250,000. So that would bring the total budget request to $31,771,973. So the total deficit now would be $2,341,236. That's with consideration of the budget cuts in the revenue that was just shown on the previous page, which equates to just about 7.9% increase over last year.
Can we go to the previous slide with, all right, yeah. Proposed reductions, additional staff requested. What, was that like the first pass from the principals and such?
Yes.
So what did we lose on that?
You lost the staff that was listed for those requests, the science teacher at the high school, the fourth grade teacher at Minot,
Wait, so that whole previous page there'll be no additional staff?
That would be true.
That's correct.
No additional staff?
No.
And we're looking to increase by 7 point something?
Yep.
How does that happen?
Contracts.
That's disappointing. Wow. Did Deaconess lose anything? They didn't even ask for anything.
Didn't ask for it.
So they didn't lose anything.
They're going to lose supplies and materials.
Oh.
Well, Mike, it's the same thing as every year. This is
But-
my
but-
struggle.
but-
I've already said this, it's my struggle. We have a meeting and we say, please tell us what you need.
No,
And then the next, and it's
not in the first round. Usually we get, when push comes to shove and we get the numbers from the town, we got to then really, but we haven't even talked to the town yet. We're not going to get 7%.
It would be nice, but
Yeah.
probably not. Is there any other questions?
So when you talk
Can I
about it,
ask a question about the science teacher at the high school? Didn't Ms. Kelly say that that's something that might be a requirement for a lot of for the graduation?
No, it would not be. What it would do would be limiting electives.
Right, but for certain, like, AP and things like that, isn't that kind of defeating the purpose of, being the go-to and having more possibilities for science by not having another science teacher?
Mr. Palladino's here. Do you mind if he comes and
No.
speaks to it?
Please, come on up.
I'm just, because I mean, like Mike said, it is disappointing that we're not able to kind of, you know, go in. Usually you kind of go in asking for more and then end up settling for less, but cutting it before it's even presented to the town, it's, you know, without the opportunity to kind of talk about it, see about getting what we've asked for to help our students, seems like we're going in already with a defeated attitude.
So to answer the question on the science position, the science position was requested because we cut a position last year, and it decreased, as Dr. Shaver-Hood said, it decreased the electives, and it also made the class size in some science classes higher than we'd like to have them. It also didn't allow us to run some MCAS required courses for students to be prepped for testing. So again, the students that, there was a little music going on, the students that failed the MCAS had to repeat the same class versus taking another class that would prep them for a different science MCAS test. So the sky will not fall if we don't get this, but it would be advantageous if we could. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
And I guess I would come back to the committee and say, if you would like us to keep that in, we certainly can. That's not an issue. And then we'll just, that will increase the budget request to about, what, 34 million?
Right, so it'll be over 10%.
No, that's crazy, obviously, yeah.
I think part of the issue is every year, when we try to reduce the budget, we end up cutting supplies, equipment, major repairs, and then we pay for it with town money that we're voted upon. But what that does, it provides a false budget, because we're trying to make up and put back into the budget the supplies, the materials, the money to make the repairs. And when you do that, then it raises it back higher.
So, okay.
So the final figure, if you want to go to the last page. So you're saying that's net and non-net, that's transportation included?
Yes.
Transportation but we didn't discuss transportation?
Yeah, it's under pupil services.
It's under pupil services.
Pupil service, okay.
Yeah, I didn't break it out. It's
They
on-
couldn't just call it transportation.
Never.
Jeez.
Because there's other categories that fall in there, not just transportation, but that is the bulk of it.
All right, so,
Sorry, can I ask one question? So when you, and I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. When you talk about a deficit with this number, you're talking versus the current number for this year
That,
that we're in?
yes,
That's the number you're...
yes, correct.
Okay.
so is transportation going up or down, or people services?
Let's see. It went up just a little bit.
Slightly, I believe.
Yeah, pupil services went up about 138,000.
And that is strictly transportation, that's, when you say pupil services,
No, there's also in there athletics, school security.
oh, right there, good,
Right
okay.
here.
Thank you.
So, but is that non-net, so athletics is non-net?
No, I didn't break it out by non-net. I just did it by the major accounts that
All right, because
you have in your policy book.
just because we're going to be taking 3 votes at some point, it would be net, non-net, and the total.
Okay. But for this discussion...
No,
we're
for this
talking about
discussion, yeah,
total.
I get it. So, offhand, do you know if transportation is going up or down?
Hold on one second.
And correct me if I'm wrong, transportation is the only thing in non-net.
That is correct. I don't have the total here, but, yeah, it looks like it's going up. The contracted services going up a little bit, and of course, the salaries, because they're contractual.
Right. Now, and maybe this is for later on in this meeting, but I mean, is I'm hearing reports that we're basically driving around buses with one or no people in them these days?
What?
With one or no people in them?
I would not think that was true.
Okay.
But what has to happen is, we have to have an assigned seat for every student that's going to ride. We're not allowed to,
Yeah.
because of the COVID rules. So if we have X number of seats, and those students choose not to ride for that day or that week, we still have to keep that seat open.
Yeah. That's terrible. Wow. All right. I have more questions, but I want other people to have their chance too.
Kevin, do you have any questions? All right. April or Mary, do you have any questions for Christine?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mike, go ahead.
Just I guess, you know, we know we're not going to get 7%, so I guess I'd say at this point, what are the must-haves? Like, what do we really need to hold on to as we progress here? Anyone?
Well, I'd say we probably want to hold on to staff, but, you know, there's been so much drastic cuts with supplies that they're going to be able to cut some of that, but that's still not going to make up the difference that we need to operate. So unfortunately, it's been a vicious circle, and it's not just in this district. Every year you cut and you cut and you cut and you cut. And then at some point, the only thing left to cut is people. So, you know, that's why we gave you a scenario there of what could possibly happen.
Do you have an idea of what the percentage is, of how much of the budget is salary and how much is it? I know it's very high.
It's probably close to 80%, 81%. You can go to the last slide. So the next steps will, you know, continue to meet with administrators and directors, review the current staffing and the programs we offer, continue communication with various stakeholders, and continue to make budget reductions.
Have we gotten any inkling from the town administrator on what we'd be looking at?
Not really, not at this point. I think they're just focusing on trying to get town meeting and our tax rate
Yeah,
set.
that'd be an accomplishment, I suppose. Yeah. And our budget process is way ahead of theirs anyway, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, there's been no adjustment to that process
No.
because of this?
No, because of, we have to meet certain deadlines because of town charter. And that's why we are at this point having this discussion. But if you go back and if you look at the budget for this year at $30,530,737, with the money that we've put toward the budget, you then look at the 31, that if you take all of the things out, you apply the monies that we could apply, we're really $1.2 million away, and that would be a lovely thing to have happen if we didn't have to take away everything. And in the past, you know, you asked the question, what's our priority? I would hope that our priority remains the same of keeping teachers and staff in front of students.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to do everything possible to make that happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you for pointing out that the two numbers are closer together than what we thought. Right, right. So would it be safe to say that this budget will be different when we present it to at the public hearing?
I think what we will do is we'll be meeting with the superintendent's advisory committee. We'll be looking and talking with the administrators and directors and see how we can make any other adjustments. The bottom line is, over the years, you know, when the principals and the directors come, they don't ask for frill. We're just asking, this is what we think we need to run the schools. And when we can't get it, then we kind of go into survival mode and try to maintain the best we can. And we've been in survival mode for a while now.
I think Mrs. Panarisi used to put it best, and when she would put forth the budget, and she would say, "This isn't even like for the spectacular bells and whistles. This is just barely adequate." Back in the past. So.
But when you say that's what we've been doing for many years now.
Yeah, that's yeah, and frankly, doing quite well. Despite
Absolutely.
it.
I did want to echo that sentiment that even so, right, we have done some amazing things have happened here. We saw the beginning slideshow with all of our successful students. Our kids are amazing, and we offer them some wonderful, wonderful opportunities. So we can't forget that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot with what we've got.
And though it sounds discouraging, this is just the beginning, and we'll work from here and see where it goes.
Any other questions?
Any other questions here? No. April or Mary, do you have any other questions?
None at this time, thanks. No, thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we're going to move right into.
Oh, into the monthly financial, okay.
Yep, the monthly financial. No, they received it though. Just like the last monthly report, there really isn't anything that's jumping out at me as of right now. I don't know if you had a chance to review this, but if there's any questions that you have, if I had anything that I'm concerned about right now, I would bring it to your attention, but this is only through the end of October, so we haven't hit winter yet or any other snafus. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
So just refresh my memory. I don't think to date for this year have we done any transfers?
No.
Are there any in the queue? Do we need to do any transfers?
Probably sometime in next year, January, February. We'll take a hard look at it and do it then, request them then.
Okay. Probably in what areas?
Special ed, yeah, special ed. You might see some movement with some savings in salaries, and I don't want to even guess at the utilities because I haven't been here long enough to know what happens here. So so those are the areas we're looking at right now.
And now in last year's monthly reports and such, it was really tough to follow because we were trying to play catch up from a previous year where things got really out of whack, and now so you're finding that all of the accounts are lining up the way they should.
Yeah, they look. Yeah, there's just a lot. There's a lot of them. But
any more than any other district?
Some.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe condense them a little bit. I know that DESA requires a certain chart of accounts, but I think by looking at some of these, we probably can be able to condense some, even, for reporting out of the end of the year report. Be happy to say the end of the year report's done and in.
Yeah.
So I was able to combine, by doing that, it really gave me a real good handle on the accounts. So I think that some of them can definitely be closed down together. So, do you have any other questions?
I don't think so.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm just looking at that. I'm just curious. I don't remember ever seeing junior, senior high school as a line item. And I'm just wondering, is that just the 8th grade at the high school, or is that something entirely different? Because mine at middle school, Deacon's, and high school I see, but I don't remember ever seeing junior, senior high school, so I didn't know. I mean, there's a principal's salary. I'm just wondering what that is.
Is that the co-op?
Yes, that's the co-op. Should really take that out of there. That's the co-op. Is that April?
Okay.
That's just that.
I just wasn't sure. I don't remember having seen it like written that way, so thank you.
You're welcome.
My only question is, have there been any unexpected expenses because of COVID that have affected any line items in an unusual way?
I don't think so, because we've been able to use other sources of revenue to get things that we need for the COVID. So as of right now, no, so we'll
So
see.
some of those expenses we won't even see in the budget,
No,
right? Okay. That was my only question.
not as of right now, let's say that.
Right, right.
We don't know what these next few months are going to bring with this pandemic, so.
Okay,
Anything else?
no more questions. I guess we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm probably getting zoomed.
Next on the agenda is the report of the superintendent.
Okay. We have a number of gifts. The first, I would like the committee to accept school supplies donated by Staples. It will be distributed to all Wareham schools. There will be as well school supplies donated by Sandy and Atista of Buzzards Bay to Beyond School Time. Hand knit hats and mittens and school supplies from Knitwits, and I believe that they've been donating for several years. There's a Chromebook and power cord from an anonymous donor, a Stop and Shop card, and a $100 Visa gift card by an anonymous donor, $100 from Gateway Graphics, and a $25 gift certificate to Mark Anthony's by Ace Hardware. So I would ask that the committee please accept all of these gifts.
Is there a motion to accept these gifts?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Thank you.
400.
And then we have the approval of bill and payroll warrants, which you have listed in your newsletter. I would ask that you please approve the bills and payrolls.
Is there a motion to approve?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Go ahead and second it.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 400.
Okay. And just to provide you a brief update on this school year, you know, one thing that we've said from the very beginning, we would love to have our students back for a longer day. So we've been having some conversations about how would we make that happen. We've, one of our hurdles that we're looking at is transportation, because there's so many regulations or requirements around cleaning that there needs to be about 60 to 90 minutes between the high school and middle school route and the elementary route. So we need to make sure that we have enough gap in that time to turn around to make sure that the buses are cleaned. We also are looking at how do we provide lunches to our students in a safe environment while they're at school, but then continue to be able to provide lunches to our students that are remote and get the food out to the students. So we have been meeting, our administrators have been meeting, having this discussion. I reached out and am beginning to have the discussion with the WEA. And as our plans start to come together, we'll be bringing it back to the committee. It certainly is our goal to have our students return as much as possible. We just need to make sure that everybody's safe. We're able to adhere to the guidelines to make that happen. So we are working on that, and we would like to be able to have it come at a time when there's enough warning for parents, students, and staff, so we can make the preparations and make it at a timely transition. So if you have any questions, I would be very happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, April.
So how has it been with the buses and any sort of, with as the weather's getting colder, with the windows having to be kept down in the extreme weather? So that's my first question.
Well, I'm sure that it's not very enjoyable riding those buses with the windows down, but there's really nothing that we can do about it.
Okay, so my second question, I know that you had mentioned previously when I had asked at the last meeting about shortage of bus drivers, and we were going to find out where the positions were posted. In our school committee packet, you had a list of personnel and of vacancies, and none of those vacancies consist of bus drivers, or that you're looking for drivers. So I was just curious if it's not listed there, where would that be listed if we're trying to be able to adequately provide possible transportation if we already don't have enough drivers?
Yes, Mr. Andrews is preparing a listing that will be posted. In the past, we've posted it on School Spring, and we've placed it in the Wareham Weekly. If there are other locations, Mr. Andrews is exploring other posting sites, but he has assured me that we will have a posting up in the next week or so.
Okay, and another question is, you said that the buses, you need 90 minutes between runs to clean the buses. So are they getting cleaned between the morning run and the, from in the middle of the day after they, switch, from the high school, middle school run to the Minot and Deacon's runs, or are they getting cleaned at the end of the day? Because I'm hearing conflicting information.
Well, that's interesting because it takes 60 to 90 minutes, and they are to be wiped down every time we change cohorts.
Okay, and my last question with transportation is, has with the few, obviously I know that it's DESE's requirement that, contact tracing isn't necessarily being done at the schools, and I know that you have notified parents by email if there was any sort of positive cases, at least a few emails as a parent that I've received regarding any positive cases or possible contact at the schools. Is that being done, if they're on the bus? Because if they're being only limited in the classroom, how is that working for notifying, is the bus drivers and things in transportation, or how is the tracing working for us? As I know that we were going to try to do that, so I'm just wondering how the cases are looking and the positivity in the community in regards to not only transportation but in the buildings as well.
I'm not exactly sure what your question is, so I'm going to try to answer it, and so if I do not fulfill that, please let me know. I believe that you asked, are we contact tracing from the schools, and do we contact trace on buses?
Yes.
Okay. We do not do the contact tracing. That is the job of the public health nurse. And so what happens is, if I'm notified that there is a positive case or a positive exposure, I then need to notify the Board of Health, which I promptly do. As well, I have to notify the Department of Education. The public health nurse then is responsible for calling the family or making contact with the family of whomever is thought to be positive. She then gets information from them about who their close contacts are, and then she's the one that makes notification of the close contacts. If it is someone in our school, what we have done is we've helped the Board of Health out, and we have made initial contacts, but the official contact must come from the public health nurse. And if we have sent somebody home from school because of believing that they were positive, we would not ever send anybody home on the school bus. We also, are working through this, and after one or two people that we had to send home, we found out that we needed to expand who we made notice of, that there would be people off of a bus, so we did not have bus drivers waiting for possible students to ride if they were quarantined. So does that answer your question?
To an extent. So how often and how long does the public nurse, work? Is she doing this daily to make sure that everything is as up to date as possible? Or is this, I'm just trying to, from a public health standpoint, especially where people are trying to send more kids to the schools, but we're getting, you can only have 5 people at Thanksgiving. It seems a little bit conflicting, in my opinion, to figure out, obviously I know that getting the kids back in the building is a priority, but, it seems like it would be, kind of a full-time job to figure out who is contacted or possibly contacted and how things are being cleaned and information to be updated. So I'm just wondering, is that being done? Is that somebody, in the town hall that does that all day? Is this someone that's employed through the school?
The public health nurse, we do not have anything to do with the employment of the public health nurse. That is based from the Board of Health. And we are not the ones that quarantine people. We are not the ones that would contact trace. We are certainly very willing to help and to provide information, but that is not our role, and we're not able to do that. And as far as I know, she works to make sure that it's promptly taken care of. This is not something that could wait a week and then call the people to check it out.
Thank you.
Mary, go ahead.
So I'm going to voice my concern right here because I'm facing this in my own district. These people in the public health are like 6 days behind with notifying people. So I'm going to be honest, I'm concerned, and I have to wonder, whether or not we should consider going remote, at least for the holidays, because there are cases out there that we are not aware of and we are not cautious about. So, and I know that even in Fall River, they have, the charter schools have, they've gone remote for the holidays.
Do we know that they're 6 days behind in Wareham?
I can't hear you.
Do we know that they're 6 days behind in Wareham?
Yes, because we had some cases here, and we were questioning about when were the people going to be notified, and they said we're 6 days behind.
Mary, just to be clear, that's in Wareham, not in Fall River.
If it's in Fall River, I can't believe that it's not. I know. So is there a way to find out?
So is she, Mary, are you saying that Wareham's 6 days behind or Fall River's?
I'm saying in the district that I'm in.
Okay.
That she's telling me that the public health is 6 days behind. So is there a way to find out in Wareham? How far behind are they?
Yeah, we certainly can ask, but I will tell you how we've handled this before is when we've had to make notification to the public health nurse, when we know about it, and I agree with you, I'm sure there are many cases that we're not aware of in the community. However, we one of the things that we have done is our staff have called to check on people that we have sent home because of being quarantined to see if they've been contacted by the nurse. In a couple of instances, they were not. And when that happened, then that allowed me to make the call to the Board of Health and say, you know, we've done our due diligence, I need your help. And they've stepped up and they've helped us. But because our staff took that time to make that extra call, that allowed us to have a better handle on where we're at. And that's one thing that we've continued to do.
Okay. All right, that's good to know.
There has been some talk in the news recently about school districts being supplied with rapid testing kits. Is that something that Wareham would?
Right, we're talking about it, but right now, our nurses are pretty well consumed with just making sure that people have flu vaccinations, and we're not quite ready to take another major task under our belt at this point. Go ahead.
There are rules around having access to that as well.
Really?
Like, they have percentages about how many cases have to happen before
they
they'll
give you
have
those
the
tests.
group. Yeah, so there's all these other rules around it, basically.
And Wareham hasn't.
We wouldn't
relatively
qualify.
hasn't had that many.
No, we
cases.
wouldn't qualify at this point.
I'm not minimizing any case. I'm just saying relatively. Like, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had stepped out, but I came back, and I apologize if I missed it, but how many active COVID cases do we have in the district?
Right now, I'm not aware of any.
Oh,
Is that right? Are you guys? Yeah. We've had several, but they're now back.
So-
We have a couple that are out being tested, but we've not heard if there's any positive.
so did I hear correctly that the bus garage is shut down? Like you can't go in there or something?
Well, yes, you did. Because,
What's going on with that?
well, I guess I'll answer it online. I'm not really thrilled about this. But there's been some events at the bus garage that make me very concerned about the health and well-being of our drivers. And so, from my understanding, some of the drivers and some of our staff were going in and not social distancing, not maintaining proper protocol. And our staff is very important to us to make sure that we can get our students to school. And we have shut down the bus garage for staff to come in because it's a gathering point, and at this point, I cannot afford to have drivers quarantined.
And those lines get a little blurred between the town because, did I hear also that there's no more mechanics, like they can't come in or anything?
I don't have anything to do with the mechanics.
Right, okay. But I guess the concern I heard was that, like, these bus drivers, they can't, there's no bathroom for them to
Well,
use.
that's not true.
Okay, all right.
Because what they can do is if they need to use the restroom, they can go in one at a time.
Okay.
So there's no social distancing. So they maintain that. If they need supplies, they need to let Vanessa know, and Vanessa will bring them out and leave them for them. But what is happening is the social distancing was not being followed, and I cannot afford to have our drivers quarantined.
All right, understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So then were there any cases then from that incident?
I can't speak to that because of confidentiality.
Wouldn't confidentiality only be not releasing the name, but not necessarily releasing if we know of any positive cases? That seems to go in line with the contact tracing, where you're not saying exactly who it was, but you're letting it know who or if there's been any positive cases, especially if it's in the bus garage and they're driving kids and then the kids are going into the schools. That seems
I think we would let that
Okay. All right. So with all due respect, we cannot continue this conversation. There are no bus drivers that are quarantined, but I will not continue this because it has nothing to do with the schools. It has to do with town property, not the schools.
Okay, so is that the end of the superintendent's
It
report?
is.
Okay. All right, so we will move on, I believe, to the evaluation of the superintendent.
Sorry, what?
Can you look at your agenda for me? I've lost my head. Yes, evaluation of the superintendent. So I guess I would start by reminding anyone who doesn't already know that the superintendent is the only employee who is evaluated in such a way, in such a public way. Since being on the school committee, I've struggled with this process, but it is a requirement, so here we are. As the chair, I was the person who received the evaluations of the school committee and summarized them. So there is a summary report that was received by the other members of the school committee, by the superintendent, and it has been posted for the public. There are two pieces to the evaluation in Wareham. There is the DESE form, and there is another form that was developed by previous school committee members. Each member filled out both forms. So I'm just going to read a little bit from my summary, and then every school committee member will have an opportunity to speak to their own evaluation. The first form that I'll talk about is the numeric form that assigns values to different categories of performance for the superintendent. Each member calculates a number. The average of that number is 80.3, which equates to a rating of proficient based on the scale on that form. So also attached to my summary are excerpts from the individual school committee evaluations. I'm not going to read those excerpts. They're part of that report, but it's always been my opinion that each member can speak to their own evaluation. And by speaking themselves, they can speak to what they feel is important. But on that evaluation, on the second page, there is a summary from the end of cycle summative evaluation. There is a summary rating by each member. So there are 5 members of the school committee, 4 members rated on that page proficient, 1 member rated needs improvement. So based on those two documents and those ratings, that would mean 2 things for the superintendent. It means that she would be eligible for a raise between 0 and 3%, and that based on an amendment that was signed to her contract a few years ago, her contract will be extended by 1 year. So that would make her contract, right now is through July 31st, 2021, and so this would extend her contract to July 31st of 2022. So with that, I'll go to each member, and as I said, let them speak to their own evaluation. I'll go last, and we'll go from there. Unless anyone has any questions beforehand on the process or anything that I've said.
You had said 4 people had rated proficient?
Mm-hmm. On page 2 of the DESE form, there are 2 forms.
Oh, gotcha.
Right? There are 2 forms. One other thing I do want to say to the other members, I know there were some questions that were asked of me, and I'm sorry if I didn't respond to your questions. I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about it before tonight's meeting. It wasn't that I didn't want to answer your questions. That was the only reason, if I didn't respond.
But to be clear, that I think 3 members voted proficient, right?
On the numeric form, 3 members voted proficient.
Yeah.
The average of those scores was 80.3.
Right.
Yes, and in the summary report is a summary of those numeric
Yeah.
that lists everyone?
Yeah, that's the one that matters for like the contract and such.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
okay. So we'll go from there. So Mike, you can go first.
I'll defer for a moment.
Okay, all right. Kevin?
Sure. So as a new member of the committee, I didn't have the luxury of having a whole year, past year in terms of observation, so I had to rely on the evidence supplied by the superintendent, and that's how I based the majority of my my observations and my ratings, as well as the time that I came in June. And I can say that I think the superintendent's done a very commendable job leading the district in unprecedented times. Students were ready. Wareham was ready. We had the technology in place that a lot of districts didn't have, and I think that's in part to the foresight of the superintendent. I also think that her work on the building project, the fact that the school is ahead of schedule and under budget, is a major accomplishment. The fact that she served as a de facto business manager for most of last year, splits her responsibilities, takes time away from other things. And I would just add that my observations are that we have a leadership team that works very well. And all the teachers and the administrators have done great hard work. And that's appreciated by school committee and by constituents that have talked to me. And I think that is a trickle-down effect to that. The leadership team is respected in their buildings by the surveys that we read. And I think that's because the leadership team is respected by the superintendent. And for those reasons, I gave a ranking of a high proficient. And I did just acknowledge that I can only, going by the evidence, if the evidence were, I think, aligned more specifically to specific standards and goals, that would benefit me as an evaluator, which in turn would benefit the evaluatee. But overall, I had high marks for the superintendent.
Okay, thank you. Mary?
So I just do want to go back to, I think Mike was addressing it. I'm a little confused about the, the rating of proficient by one of the other members when the school was a 75. And also on my own, just remarking on my own evaluation, I did put in things about that, I thought that, it was great that we did so well with transitioning over to remote because we had the Chromebooks in place. I also made a comment about the principals doing a great job it seems like with the discipline according to the surveys. Also about doing the curriculum, they developed curriculum assessments. The real main concern, huge concern I had was about that there really didn't seem to be any focus or any thought about special education. When I looked through the self-assessment and with the evidence that was produced, there was really nothing about special education. So again, I'm going to go back to the question about why that 75 was considered to be proficient. I'm just confused about that.
Sure. So the numeric scores, you have this copy, right, of the summary, Mary? Can you hear me? So the 5 numeric scores, including the 75, were averaged, and that average is 80.3. And that was stated on the front page of the summary. In addition to that, I took on page 2 of the DESE form, at the top of the form, it says, rate overall summative performance. We all filled out that form, and that's where that information comes from on that, for that part of the summary. So that's why.
So,
Okay, I'm just confused because I don't think that's ever been done in the past.
yeah. So with all due respect, I think that's an error. So I think we're getting confused that there's the average, right? And then there's the scores, all right? And so yeah, she got 3 proficients in at least, you know, so
Yeah.
let's just say 3 proficients for now. And that's what the contract specifies as far as, you know, advancing another year. Where the 4 comes in, I still don't understand where you got 4. I mean, if you look at the
I just explained where I got it from. On page 2 of the DESI form, it's not a mistake. I was very clear on the summary. I wrote, summary of ratings from the end of cycle summative evaluation report, page 2. This page.
okay.
So this page is where I got that information for each member. Now,
So-
if you're saying that for the contract, well, for the contract extension, if you're saying 3 proficients, whether we go by the numeric grade or this grade, there's still 3 proficients.
There is. I'm just saying, I do think that's an error that there weren't, you're saying that the contract, per the contract amendment attached, the contract of the superintendent will be extended to July 31st, 2022, based on this proficient rating, parentheses, based on proficient rating by 4 members, as well as average rating for proficient. But there's 3 proficients, I mean, on the form that matters.
So, that is a flaw, I believe, in the whole process, which is why we've had conversations about improving this process, and I brought the policy with me.
Correct, but to change it now doesn't.
I'm not changing anything. I didn't change anything.
Okay.
Well, I guess, I'm sorry, Mary. I guess I disagree, that you're certainly, if that's how you feel, I just disagree. But anyway, regardless, if that's how the school committee feels and you'd like me to change this to reflect,
I mean, it's not going to make any
I'll leave that
difference
part out.
the end result. It's just that it just goes against what we've done in the past.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to set this precedent, is what I'm saying, because it's moot. It's moot now. But what if it was like 2 and 3? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I thought I was providing more information than I needed to provide. I thought I was, again, just providing. There is no template to go by. Every chair has done it a different way. Every chair has done this summary in a different way.
Every chair has referenced this page.
And I
Always gone to the first bed, whatever it is, the number, you know, going by the numbers.
Okay.
I would just ask, why do we fill out this form at all? It's
Right.
required, correct? By DESI?
It is required by DESI.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it is required, we filled it out, and Joyce reported on that, as well as the numerical form, which is what contractually we have to go by.
Mm-hmm.
Contractually, yes. We have to contractually go by this one, which says 3 proficient.
Yeah, the numeral.
Right, and Joyce said it said 3 proficient on that one, and on this one it said 4. Well, it did.
But in the page, on her little summary page, she's saying that the contract is being extended because she got 4 proficients. It's really being extended because she got 3 proficients.
Oh, my God. I see that, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, let's move on to April, please.
Okay, so I did, definitely give a lot of credit for all of the steps that we took to really embrace against our, knowing how COVID was going to affect the district and in getting ourselves prepared for remote learning. My biggest hurdle has and always will be communication and transparency, just both as a parent and as someone in communication with a lot of parents, how sometimes things can get lost and in ways to improve, with in more engaging, not necessarily engaging content, but in getting it accessible to people. I heard a lot of people throughout this not, either not getting emails, not getting messages, not getting phone calls, some getting phone calls, sometimes not getting phone calls. So again, just going back to, you know, consistency, and I've always, you know, since I've been on the committee, have been a big proponent of being proactive instead of reactive, and I still sometimes feel that sometimes that's not always the case, so that's why my rating came out the way that it did.
Okay, thank you. Mike, are you ready now?
So I did rate proficient. I had hoped you would read from the comments, but I don't know if I want to read my comments. You know, I'll at least, yeah. This sort of kind of piggybacks on what Kevin was saying. So this was under curriculum and instruction. And so the challenge with this is it's such a comprehensive instrument, you know what I mean? So there's so many different areas where someone can do really well and not so well, but it tends to even out, I think. So so this is one of the more positive comments. I had said, there's nothing positive about enduring a pandemic. However, the situation was made much less severe for the district due to the vision and focus of digital learning in the prior years. Wareham is full. You know, can I get that light on? Just thank you. Wareham has fully embraced and implemented digital learning into the curriculum. Every student from grade 12 right down to grade 2 has their own Chromebook, but Wareham goes well beyond that. These aren't just cool gadgets. The day-to-day curriculum is fully integrated and takes advantage of powerful suites of tools. This made us far more prepared than not just our surrounding districts, but among the entire state. That didn't happen overnight. There were grants applied. Nope. There were grants applied for and received for some $100,000 to expand and improve the infrastructure to handle it all. Countless hours of targeted and effective professional development with specialists certified in Google Suites. Assessment systems were added to give real-time results that gave our teachers insights into student needs, and the list goes on. When I compared our position to those in many other districts that I communicate with, I was nothing short of proud for where we were, and it was tough not to gloat a little, you know. And anyone who knows me knows that, you know, I'm pretty firm with these, and you know, that I wanted to just leave it on a positive note. But there were other things in there that brought it down to, I guess, what I call the low end of proficient, but proficient nonetheless. And now, this is the first time we as a school committee are seeing the other members' words. And I guess Mary and April don't have this yet. But the superintendent, I think, saw it yesterday, right?
I saw them, you saw them, online.
Oh, no, the full.
I've not seen those.
You haven't seen this yet? I thought she said it. Oh,
No, I
okay.
didn't say that.
Okay. No, I was gonna see if you agreed or disagreed, but you haven't even seen them yet.
Nope.
Oh, okay. I'll leave it at that then.
So, I mean, I guess my comments will echo some of what's already been said. As far as, you know, leading us through a pandemic, I mean, who would have thought when we approved the goals that we're evaluating on that any of that would have happened? You know, under the leadership of Dr. Shaver-Hood and the administrative team, the switch was made very quickly with very little downtime, and I will add with very little guidance from the state. Maybe now more now, but at the beginning, very little guidance, if not, you know, the opposite. So I just want to acknowledge that. Maybe not everyone knows that my style as a school committee member is I'm not just at meetings, I am asking questions all of the time. So not just of the superintendent, but of lots of people. So I just want to say thank you for allowing that to happen. To answer all of my questions. Last year, the budget process, it's always a difficult process. Last year was even more drawn out than usual. Felt like we had to go through the process and go through it 2 or 3 more times by the time we were done. And in the absence of the business manager, that was not easy. And Dr. Hood, Dr. Schwam, you know, they really took on that extraordinary amount of work, nights and weekends, and that did not go unnoticed. You know, student achievement is always the focus. I see the superintendent working every day to give the teachers and staff the resources they need in order for our students to all be successful, our teachers to be successful. I guess, and so then just in closing, we listen to the superintendent always thank the principals and the teachers for everything that they've done. So I just want to make sure that we thank her and her team for everything that they've done over the last year. So thank you. Go ahead.
It's just, I thought you said you gave her everything.
I left everything in the office.
Oh, but you still haven't seen it.
I did it like I was supposed to. I went online and looked at them.
She did. She
Oh,
did
okay.
not even receive it directly.
Oh, okay.
Because you did not receive yours till tonight, correct?
Right,
Yes.
right. Spent a lot of time making sure that
Yeah.
this was done.
Thank you. I've been there. I
you have.
appreciate, you know, I know the kind of torture it is,
Yeah.
so.
It is. So under evaluation of the superintendent, there is a vote to approve or to accept the summary. And there is a vote, if there is to be a vote, for a raise. So that is not itemized on the agenda. Under evaluation of the superintendent, I've looked at past agendas, so I'm looking at you because I know that the word vote not being on the agenda.
Oh, that's all part of the evaluation.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
It's in the contract, yeah.
All right. So as far as the approval of the summary, I guess I would look for a motion. Go ahead.
So you're looking to just, what are we going to vote on?
We're going to vote to accept this summary.
So I'll motion to approve for discussion.
Okay,
Second.
okay,
All right, I'd like to discuss.
okay.
So I would just like to amend and just change that 4 to a 3.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mike.
I
Okay,
agree also. I thought it was all based on the numbers and the math, based on previous evaluations that I've looked at, so I thought that's how that worked, and just the way that the numbers fell.
okay,
And so to be clear, this vote will only approve the summary. It's not going to necessarily approve any monetary.
no, this
Salary.
is just a vote to approve, to accept the summary.
Okay.
The summary doesn't state anything about a raise, just what the range is. Right, I did
So
not,
are we voting to vote as amended?
yes. So, well, do we need another motion?
So I'll
Withdraw your motion.
I'll withdraw my motion. And
Withdraw
seconder
your
agree?
second, right,
Yes.
Okay.
second.
So I move to approve as amended.
okay. And we're going to amend,
Second.
Second. So I guess to be specific, where it says in parentheses, based on proficient rating by 4 members, to read instead, based on proficient rating by 3 members.
fifth paragraph, yes. Is there a second?
Oh, April seconded.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry, roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself, no. So 4-1-0.
So I would move, looking at the salary increase scale, realizing that the superintendent was awarded a proficient, that I think we should, I would move for an increase in salary of 2%.
Okay. Is there a second? So at this time, I want to transfer my role as chair to you, Mike.
That's a surprise. I guess, how
For
does that?
for this motion and this vote.
So does the committee have to vote to do that, or?
No.
All right, so yeah, I am now chairing the meeting.
Okay. So I'd second Kevin's motion.
So I'm chair. So, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would just say that based on the superintendent's longevity in the district, her rating as a proficient, her leadership in the district, that this raise is deserved.
And I would just add that it really amounts to a cost of living increase.
Mhm. And remind everyone that she didn't receive an increase last year, so she's already worked 1 year without an increase.
Any further discussion? So,
Yes.
oh, go ahead.
Can I also remind people that teachers didn't receive any either, neither did other central staff or principals.
And I would, are you done, Mary?
Yes.
All right. And I would add that while it is proficient, it's barely proficient as far as an average.
Mhm.
Oh, my God. I can't. I just can't.
So this motion, a second. So all those in, well, roll call. Ms. Bakayaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brajoli?
Yes.
Ms. Rossi? No. Ms. Morgan? No. Myself, no. Fails. 0, I'm sorry, 2-3-0, yes. I'm rusty. So with that, I will relinquish chairmanship back to Mrs. Bakayaki.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the report of the school committee.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I just want to go on record that I have the right to do a rebuttal.
Mhm.
I will be planning on responding to some of the members, and that will be at a later date.
Okay.
What was the last thing you said?
Excuse
I
me?
heard the rebuttal. I didn't hear the.
Yes, I will be responding to some of the members at a later date.
Okay.
Okay, report of the school committee, elementary school building committee update. There isn't really an update. We haven't really had a meeting since the last time we met. I know that the community outreach committee has been very active. I know they were at a Halloween activity at the Y, trying to get the word out to families. It's just been so difficult that they have not, been able to have any events at the school because of COVID, haven't been able to have any events at the elementary schools. So they were excited to be able to get out into the community and do that. And as soon as they're able to do more, there will be more done. Next is the policy on COVID-related issues. So this is a new policy.
Oh, yeah.
Did everyone have a chance to look at it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just tell you what my thoughts are, and then we can decide as a committee. I think that some of the items on there need to come off because we don't have some of the policies that are on there. I can't find my copy. So I'm just curious what others have to say about it. Anyone?
I would just say that the spirit of it is to give the superintendent a little more latitude during the pandemic, and once that pandemic is over, we take those back. I didn't know if the chair could tell us how many of these policies we don't have right now, roughly, out of this packet?
When I first looked at it, maybe 4. And some of them would just be additions. And they don't necessarily, I guess, have to be their own policies. They could be part of this policy. We're creating a new policy. So if we don't have a policy for something, but we want to include it in this one, we can't, because it's a new policy. But for this meeting, I just wasn't able to make the changes and get it out to everybody, so I don't have something that we could vote on.
So we'll be tabling this to vote for future meeting once it's been amended?
Yes, did you have a chance to look at it? Do you have any suggestions?
I did only because where it is sort of like a temporary policy only while, COVID mandates are in effect. I didn't personally notice anything that wouldn't possibly apply, even if there are some things that might be things that we don't have at this time, doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be applicable at a future date should this continue. So I would always err on having more information and more things to be covered, to err on the side of caution than to take things out. But that's more how I would view it.
Well, what I'm referring to is it's referring to policies, actual policies that we don't have. So those letters stand for policies.
That's the thing, is which policy, on this do we not have policies for specifically?
Well, I cross-referenced it with our policies.
Well, not necessarily specific, but I think that if there's nothing specific as a policy, I think almost everything would be at least in the handbooks. So maybe calling it a policy or policy/handbook amendments, so it's more encompassing, maybe?
Well, this is an actual policy. We have a policy manual, and this is referring to policies that we don't have. So we can't make changes or refer to policies that we don't have. So that's why I went through the policy manual, but I guess I just need to do more work. I was just asking if anyone else had a chance to look at the policies. So yes, I guess we'll table it to the next meeting, and then I'll try to prepare one that only references the policies that we have. The body of the policy, like you said, Kevin, the beginning of it all applies to us, and it would be beneficial. Mike, do you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll table that to the next meeting, which is not in 2 weeks, but in 4 weeks because of the budget hearing, so that'll be December 19th. So, okay, you're up now. Policy.
Okay, thank you. Can you be chair of policy review?
Yeah, no.
All right, thank you. Where am I? So I want to thank Ms. Wixton for making the minutes. It's really, really helpful. And all the other stuff behind the scenes you're doing as well. So with that, we have some policies to review and vote on. Hopefully everyone had a chance to read it in your packets. So we met on November 4th. And I'm just going to go in order of the minutes, which may or may not be the same as what's on the agenda. So let's do attendance, grade 8 through 12. This is the policy that we had tabled prior, and we wanted to get Mr. Palladino's input, which was great to have him there. And we had discussed it, and what came out of that was, I'll just read from the minutes. The committee seemed satisfied with Mr. Palladino's explanation of no changes Oh, and no changes were suggested for the credit pending / no credit policy. But it's important to note, at the October 7th meeting, a change in credit retrieval was suggested. Did that actually make it through? Yes, the physician's note, number 4. So that is a change. As well as the items highlighted in yellow, where it says here, like on the first page, may make up missed work. And again, on the second page, truant will not be allowed to make up work. And I think that's the only edits.
Okay.
So with that, we'd take a motion. Well, I guess you're the other one that has to take a motion to approve as amended.
Could I just ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Well, I know Mr. Palladino's here, so maybe he can answer. But the 8th grade, is this the first time we're changing this or reviewing this since the 8th grade came in? And having the 8th grade be there, has that had any effect on this policy? Okay. And is under credit retrieval, a physician's note may excuse the absence. Is that new? Was that not there before?
Which part?
Under credit retrieval?
I think that is new. I think did Dr. Shaverhood suggest that? The number 4, a physician's note may excuse the absence.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions. So you're looking for a motion to approve this as amended?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Mike?
Well, yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Mary? Rosemary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Thank you. And myself, yes, 500.
Okay. Next one is non-discrimination on basis of gender identity. That one. Let me go back to my minutes. Well, I probably should have mentioned that at the policy review committee, the one we just voted on did pass unanimously 10-0-0 by the committee. So with this one here, let's see, it said, if you look at the highlight, it's basically the changes are in the highlights. So if you have questions about them, I can help answer them. So in the yellow there on the first page, the word "are" was inserted.
Mm-hmm.
Second page, gender transition. If the student is age appropriate. I think that's it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
And just FYI. So this did. Oop! I keep going back and forth. This did pass again, as well, 10-0-0 at policy review.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to approve the policy as amended.
So moved.
So moved as amended.
Second.
Second. Okay. Kevin?
Yes.
Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Mary? Mary, can you hear me? Yeah,
Sorry, yes.
that's okay. And myself, yes, 500.
Can I just comment that I love the inclusiveness that our district has, and I just, the tolerance and the acceptance of so many kids, and so many different types and so many people, it's just, even from subbing when I was at the schools, it's unbelievable the support and an inclusion that everyone, no matter what their status or anything, gets in our district. And I absolutely applaud the teachers, the administrators, everybody for supporting that and helping make that happen for kids.
And the superintendent.
Thank you, April.
Yeah, that was really nice. Thanks. So that passed. Did you mention that?
It did pass.
Yeah, all right, yeah, 500.
I said, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty sure I said it.
All right, next one, recognition of school personnel. That one, we accepted the policy as is, 10-0-0.
Okay, is there a motion to approve it as is?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Myself, yes. 5-0-0.
Expense reimbursements. Second page, we removed the word not, as in place of residence is not reimbursable, so we took that out. Then added if the residence is closer to the destination.
Okay, is there a motion to approve as amended?
Moved.
Sorry, were you done?
Hmm?
Were you done?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, April?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 5-0-0.
Transportation of drivers / monitors, children.
About security cameras? No?
No, oh, security cameras? Thank you.
Yep.
Security cameras in schools. That one. Commas and semicolons and such. Thank you, Mr. Brijoli.
Oh, you're the English teacher.
Old
that
English
did
teachers
that
do
policy,
that.
Yeah. Okay, is there a motion to accept as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 5-0-0.
Transportation of drivers / monitors children. Again, the edits in yellow
Okay.
at the top. Children riding in company vehicles. First bullet in the understatement, each child must be at least age 5. But I think it just said 5. Each child must be age 5.
Oh,
You know?
not 6. just
Yeah.
5.
So if you're 6, you're out of luck. So that's it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
So moved.
Change yours to a
I'll
second.
second.
Roll call, Mary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 5-0-0. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
So I guess under any other business, I just want to mention that, again, our next meeting is not a regular school committee meeting. It is the budget public hearing in 2 weeks on December 3rd. And that will be a fully Zoom meeting. What do you guys think, how this hybrid meeting, how did this go? I'm not sure that we'll be able to continue this way. We'll try as long as we can.
It was a little difficult to hear some of the microphones at times, and definitely a little bit hard to keep up with some of the live presentations, especially watching. I have the CTV stream up at the same time, and the delay was a little bit tricky with some of the presentations, but overall, I felt that it's a good option if we have to continue this way and we are able to have a hybrid option as opposed to, just either in person or fully remote.
Okay.
So thank you for putting it together this way.
Okay. Well, like I said, the next meeting is fully on Zoom, and we'll go from there. All right, is there a motion?
No,
Sorry,
actually, with your indulgence, I'd like to revisit something on the evaluation if we could.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the summary. I have it handy.
I can't hear you, Mike.
I'm sorry, I just asked to revisit the evaluation a bit
Okay.
before we adjourn. Do you have your summary handy? All right, so I gave, we all gave our rationale and such, and it probably sounded worse than I meant it to be when I said that. When I said it was like barely average. When I'm saying that the average was 80.32, and the threshold to be proficient was 80. All right, and I stand by that. But that said, I do want to mention something, and if it indulges the committee, so be it. In the contract, there's a section in here. Performance incentive payment. Back up, I'm sorry. Here we go, yep. Performance incentive payment. I'm going to skip to the important part. The committee may award a merit bonus based on performance up to 5% of the annual salary. So there was a lot of good work here, and we have stipends, for teachers and such. Where she was doing the role of the business manager, I think that needs to be recognized, and I'd be happy entertaining something like that.
Well, I think that's what I was trying to do when I
Well,
seconded the motion for a raise. I mean, that was part of.
But this isn't a raise. This isn't a raise. So this would be a one-time bonus, and her pay salary wouldn't change. So with that, I would make a motion for just something to just say, we recognize that there was a lot of work, a lot of work, and I would make a motion for a $2,000 merit bonus.
Is it a percentage?
Yeah, sure.
I've seen it before.
But it says up to 5% of the annual salary. So I'm not going by percent. I'm just saying, $2,000. That's under 5%.
What is that percent?
I don't know. Because I'd have to know her current salary, which I don't remember offhand exactly.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a little bit more than 1%.
Yeah, it's probably 1.2%.
So I made the motion. It needs a second.
Well, I can't second it.
I'm just thinking out loud here because something is better than nothing, but that's why I mentioned that in my commendation that she did do the job as business manager last year, which is part of my rationale for making that 2% increase back then, which I think, I don't know if it seems like a very arbitrary number that we're coming up with at the moment. Is it not? Or
I'm sorry, what?
Seems like an arbitrary number, like what are we basing that on? A percentage of what salary?
Well, no, it's so the contract specifies a percentage of her salary, not to like a max of 5% of her salary. Salary is about $160-something thousand. So this is well within that, and it's. I just wanted to do something, but to Mary's point too, a lot of people got zeros, but a lot of people get stipends too,
Teachers also benefit from steps and lanes.
Sure.
And this would be the second year without any.
Yeah.
Did you already make the motion?
I did. There's no second.
Well, no. So while I would much prefer a 2% salary increase because I think it's the right thing and the just thing to do, I would second that motion if there's no alternative to what I proposed earlier, which we already got voted down. So I would accept that. I would second that motion, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I guess I would ask if you would consider changing it to 2%. So that would make it instead of, what did you say, 2,000? So that
no, because that the point is, so for my own, now that it's a motion and seconded, you guys can amend whatever you want.
Right.
But you don't need me. But just from my own perspective, like I was saying, it's proficient work. So that's why, and it barely crossed the threshold to proficient. That's why I didn't want to go for a salary raise. But I'm happy to recognize the hard work. I mean, I was there. That was a lot of hours. That was a lot of work, and like I said, it's a very comprehensive instrument. I didn't get into the negativity, but it's I thought it was fair what I did, and I think this is fair too.
Okay, so you made a motion.
Yeah.
Kevin, you seconded it?
Yeah. Well, I seconded it, and I don't know if we want to amend it or not at this point.
Well, I can't amend the motion.
So you want to amend the motion?
I'm sorry, I can't hear when Kevin is speaking.
Sorry, it's my microphone, I think. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can, thank you.
Okay.
So I think the motioner would have to agree, and I don't.
Okay, so I guess just for the sake of discussion, I can't amend the motion, but just for the sake of discussion, I would say what Kevin said, something is better than nothing, but I just repeat, that I wish it was more. I appreciate what you've said, that, we just disagree, and that's okay. So Mary or April, do you want to offer anything to the discussion?
My only question would be, and I don't disagree with Mike, I think that especially given the extra hours, the work, everything that's been done for COVID and all of our, kind of getting things ahead of almost every other district in the state when everything kind of hit the fan, I definitely think that credit should be given where credit is due, and we absolutely kind of led the pack, in my opinion, on how well we handled the situation. And I know that operating multiple hats while trying to do your own job is definitely not an easy feat, regardless of the reason for having to have those many hats. So I don't disagree with Mike. I would just want something more specific written out, like dollar amount or percentage amount, so that we have an actual number to vote on or to approve.
April, the number is $2,000. One time.
I didn't hear you say that. I thought you were negotiating a percentage.
No, it's
I didn't hear that part. Some of the microphones cut out.
No.
So I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah, it's a one-time bonus of $2,000, not a salary increase.
Yes, I agree with that, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, Mary? I just want to give you the opportunity to speak if I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree because once again, no other administrator that I know is taking a raise at this time or any benefits that are extra at this time. And the other thing I'm just going to have to make a comment about, I'm still uncertain about what actually happened, with the business manager, and I know that the town accountant, the district actually paid to help in the situation. So I'm just going to say no at this time.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second, so we'll call for a vote, and it's a roll call vote. So April?
Yes.
Mary?
No.
Kevin?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Passes.
4-1-0.
And can I also add now, this is our purview is with the superintendent, but it's unfortunate that I would do the same for Dr. Schwam too, because I know she's put in, tons and tons of time too. But I don't know if this isn't the assistant superintendent evaluation.
No.
But I just want to recognize that.
Well, I hope that in my comments, I I included you. I know that. I included both of them because I know that there was an incredible amount of work done by a lot of people. Well, thank you, Mike.
This is yours, I think. Yeah.
All right. That's enough for tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. April?
Yes?
Mary?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Thank you.